So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you, Rita, for those very warm words. And yeah, I think probably my main qualification for writing is being a mother of four amazing rangatahi, four children, and they're actually all home this week because the universities are having a mid-semester break. I'll just share my screen. This is my trick to this. Okay. Okay, are you able to see the screen I've got up there? Just need to hear. I'll just check again. Okay.
No, we can't see it. Sorry, Kaaren.
Right.
Yes.
Coming.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I thought I would use this sort of refrain to think around talking this evening about the ideas of disorder and reorder, which is very much what's been happening in my own life, and I think probably for a lot of people around the globe at the moment. And it's taken from a fairly recent work by Richard Rohr, who is a writer I really appreciate a lot, and where he talks about sort of phases of spiritual journey, about sort of being in order and disorder and reorder, and it doesn't stop there, it kind of keeps circling around. Just as an overview, I thought it might be interesting to just reflect about how I started writing for Tui Motu and some of the themes that I really keep circling around, which was for my own benefit to take notice of this, and then a little around the sort of tumult of COVID for our family, but for the whole globe, and then the invitations that maybe come from that. Tricia O'Donnell is a spiritual director who I'm sure many people know here, who lives in Christchurch. And when I was, I guess 15 years ago, visiting her, and I had 3 children under the age of 3, and finding any time to pray or think or have any sensible ideas in my head at all was quite hard work. And I was lamenting to her, why is it that nearly all the people who write about spiritual journeys, and there are many of them who I appreciate a lot, but they're nearly all male, nearly all white, they're nearly all old, and they nearly are all celibate and don't have children. And she said, well, that is true. Why don't you write something yourself? And it's like, well, you have no idea how disorganized and busy my life is. And that time, so we had our twins, Char and Shanti, and our son Rohan. And I was still trying to work a bit and, do lots of things. So that didn't seem a very practical idea, but I still sort of toyed with the idea. And so I sent off this email, and you can see I went digging through my emails, and I found this email there. I'm a 35-year-old woman living in Christchurch. I enjoy reading Tui Motu. I go to a Baptist church at the moment, but lots to connect with broader Christianity. And I wonder if you're interested in some articles. And that was Michael at the time, who was the editor, and he very graciously, from this sort of very short and unimaginative introduction, said, yes, send something over, which was really great. And I had, and so this is just a sheaf of the Tui Motu from over the years that I found while we've been living in India. We've had all of our things stored in a small shipping container on a friend's paddock. So we unearthed all of them, and it was quite a time capsule. We found, dressing up clothes and all sorts of things that I'd quite forgotten we had, including lots of the old Tui Motu articles. And but good to remember those early days. And I remembered, I guess it sort of made me think about writing as a spiritual practice. And I think for many of us, writing a journal is something that we do because it helps us focus. And I think that life and for a lot of both women and men, when you're working and you're trying to be a good parent and you're trying to contribute to the community, it's quite busy and it's quite easy to just not to have enough time to really make sense of things. And so for me, this was another of the great finds in our shipping container, but this was an article I wrote when I was a medical student. I'd taken a year off and gone to work as promoting sort of as a health educator in a Guatemalan village, and this was an article I'd written that the Herald published. So I guess sort of saying that writing is something I've enjoyed for a long time, although I don't usually get above 1,000 words as an output for these type of things. But I guess some of the ideas of writing I've written there, but just sort of helping me get clearer, helping me explore questions and enjoy creativity and just make me more attentive. One example of this was while we're in lockdown and we were in a little village, Castle Hill, which is on the road between Christchurch and Greymouth, a little alpine village. But I knew it was time for the Tui Motu article to come up, and I was going for a walk with our 11-year-old, and I just was thinking, I love the sort of dense prose of some nature writers, people like Robert Macfarlane, who writes in The Guardian, and quite Mark Cocker is another one who I like. And I thought, just love to write that sort of a lush prose that really takes you to another place. And then I was listening to these bellbirds and was hearing their voices dropping, and it was really good talking to my 11-year-old, and we were talking, what does it sound like? And so that was one of the pieces I wrote in Tui Motu this year. But just knowing I wanted to write made me more attentive to and appreciative of the bellbirds. And so I thought, well, how do I write? Because it's sort of interesting, and so it's definitely something that requires me to pause. It never works very well when I try to write in a hurry, although sometimes that I do have to have and I usually haven't had any thoughts about what I'm going to write about until the week before the deadline. And I have to say, Anne is a very gracious editor, and nearly all the months this year I've said, I realize it's the deadline, but I might be a couple of days late. But yeah, I don't usually have, but I usually try to think, what am I reflecting on? What do I want to kind of pull attention to this month? And it's usually just early in the new month. And I guess I really appreciate the articles by people like Kathleen, who bring a strong sort of theological leaning, but I haven't studied theology, and I guess that my spiritual practice is often quite a pragmatic one. So I guess that's what I sort of lean to writing about. And so I think one of the invitations for a mother or a parent is, rather than thinking of children as distracting us from where we might find God around us, is to think, how do these children bring me closer to God? How can I find God's presence in the middle of their silliness and their noise and their nests? And so with little preschoolers, this was for 12 months we lived in Port Levy out on Banks Peninsula, and we had this fabulous pig, Bessie, who used to let our children ride on his back. So it's Shanti sitting up there. But this was one of the interchanges by our twins. It would be funny if God forgot to put bones into someone and all they had was cartilage. I don't know why they thought of that. And Shanti, quite sanctimoniously, Shah, God doesn't make mistakes. And Shah says, well, God doesn't make naughty mistakes, but sometimes God might make an accident kind of mistake. And I mean, in lots of ways, it's a silly interchange, but it also just made me think about, I guess, the sort of forgiveness that, because I make a lot of mistakes in an average day, and that, but you know, most of them are accidental, and probably a few of them are ill-intended. But just appreciating what you can learn from children. Another really strong theme is seasons, and I really love the cycle of seasons, and the monsoon in India, which is raging at the moment, is a very intense season, and it was quite hard work where we were living in Mussoorie, up in the Himalayan foothills. We had a really heavy rainfall, and sometimes would go several weeks without seeing the sun, and everything would go moldy, and we'd eat scones a lot because all the milk we'd get buffalo milk, and it would always go off before, you know, within 12 hours of picking it up from the buffalo man. So seasons has been a really great, I guess, a sort of theme that I write often about, and I still just love them. And it's been wonderful being back in New Zealand for winter, because I haven't had a full winter in New Zealand for I guess about 12, 13 years. And so I'm just really, and now spring's coming, and seeing daffodils and jonquils, I'm just enjoying that a lot. And then another one is, I sort of feel like probably more angst than most people have about, you know, how does God want me to live? How does God want any of us to live? And I think living among people who are quite different to me, and particularly who have had less privilege than I have, is quite confronting. It's and even where we're living here in Christchurch, where we wanted to live in an area that was more diverse, and nearly everyone around us, there's many people who are beneficiaries, and few people own their own homes, and it's quite it's just good for me, because it's easy as a doctor to hang out with people who have a very fancy income, and who just don't naturally have relationships with people who have perhaps less resources on their side. So anyway, I guess you've probably noticed just how to live is a really important thing to me, and I'm so far from having the answers. Another big theme is climate and environmental justice, and this is one photo of me with my mother, who's in her mid-70s, and she gamely let me pick her up from the airport on a tandem a while back. It's a little bit, you know, that you fly in a plane with a vast amount of carbon attached to the flight, and then pick her up in a tandem as a sort of salve for your conscience. But anyway, and this, I just found this on one of the old Tui Motu clips I'd gone on in Christchurch. They've had these critical mass cycling rallies, and I'd talked about it's a motley gathering of people with shared vision and hope, flying or pedaling in the face of a dominant culture. And so the bicycle, for me, I love cycling, and it's a very strong part of my faith and spiritual journey, and I often pray well when I'm cycling.